Today is a big day. Your new album, Permission to Fly, is out.
Yes, very big day, very exciting. And there's a little bit of a buzz going around,
Mhm.
for
For
the
sure.
music of the day. Yeah, it's
What,
pretty
what
cool.
what can you tell me first of all about the whole like writing process and the recording process? Like, how did the album come to be?
Yeah, I mean, these things are, they take a lot of energy and a lot of steps in the way. Everything from a kind of planning stage where you're figuring out what you want to do, like what is this album really going to be all about,
Mhm.
to scheduling the time to make it a reality. So basically, once I decided what I wanted to do, which was an interesting decision-making process, because I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to make an album that had more of a focus on vocal sections, more kind of like songs mixed with all the very progressive kind of musical elements. So once I made that decision, then it was a matter of getting in the studio, remembering where all my key commands are on my recording software. Every time I go on tour, I come back, I forget how to use the stuff. So I spend a little time remembering which button to hit for record. And then, you know, trying to make the magic happen, once I got into it, it went pretty smoothly. One of the things that I did was, I had recorded a whole bunch of, like, let's call them inspired bits at the piano, like before the scheduled time was for me to work on this album. And so I was able to go through them with my daughter Ariana, who actually wrote all the lyrics for the album. And we chose ones that really resonated with us and we felt really good about. And then I made songs around some of these little moments of inspiration that I had. So that kind of helped a lot with the song element of the album, because I could really like compose like around these seeds that I had. Of course, the other big element was, as I said, like the vocals and deciding who was going to play on the album. So after a bunch of consideration, and looking at different people for those jobs, I decided to enlist Joe Payne to do the vocals, and Darby Todd. And Steve Dudayan also played guitar. And then my guest guitarist for a couple of the songs was Bastian Martinez. And then I had my band. Yeah. So after I did all my parts, then it was a matter of sending it out to some of the guys to do their magic. Yeah, that's kind of like the flow of it.
Do you do the recording mostly in your home studio, or do you
Yeah.
go? Yeah, okay. So, is that a conscious decision because you can, or is it comfort, or?
For my solo albums, the process is basically I'm composing and recording all the music like in front of my speakers with my computer running Logic Audio,
Mhm.
and so everything is happening right there. So the home
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
home is the place to do it, because
yeah.
hey,
To
it's
capture
all
the
me.
instant.
It's all me, and I'm
Yeah,
making this thing come to life. And
yeah.
I'm playing all my sounds, my piano, strings, organ, basses, choirs, sound effects, scratch drums, which I need to send to Darby. By time it leaves my space, it sounds like something.
Mm.
Obviously the drums are replaced. In this case, I had the guitar sounds I made replay all the rhythm tracks replaced by Steve Dudayan. And then I sent Joe, all the vocal melodies, which I kind of played with a vocal like sound so he could get the feel for it and then do his thing with it. But yeah, so it has to kind of be done at home, because that's how I work.
Mm. So you're not doing a vocal scratch track for yourself. You're just doing.
No, no. You know what's funny? Actually, I have some software that I could do that with, where I
Oh,
can type
okay.
in, I get one of the songs, the song Embers. I use this amazing voice software by Dream Tonic is the name of the company. And you can play in the MIDI notes, and then you can choose a voice model, and then you can have it sing. So I can do that. And I did it for one song because I was experimenting with this amazing software. But then I was like, you know what? I just need to play the notes. So then he'll sing
Mhm.
it. So,
Yeah, for sure. We can talk later about the technology a bit, but I would also like to touch. You mentioned some great musicians there. What's the sort of criteria for choosing who you play with on this album? Like, is it
sure.
just
Yeah.
who fit the part, or do you just have some guys you like to?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the drummer first. So I met Darby Todd, who is the drummer on the Dream Sonic tour when Devin Townsend came out with Dream Theater and, opened up for us, along with Animals as leaders. And Darby and I became fast friends because he's a great guy and a great drummer. So we hung out a bit and talked and had a real resonance together. And when that tour was over and it came time for me to think about, okay, my album and getting somebody, I was like, wow. I mean, ask my friend because he's amazing and it would be so cool to have him on this album. And so I did ask him if he wanted to do it. The one warning I gave him was I said, some of the music is challenging because there's a lot of meters and I do my crazy prog Jordan thing and it gets wild. And he was like, don't worry about it. That's people hire me to do the hard stuff. So he was great and did a fantastic job. The vocals were a little trickier in the sense that, first of all, most people who are out there singing today are making, horrible sounds and, growling or whatever the hell is happening, which I like to in small doses, but it's not going to happen in my music, really. There's no reason for me to do that. Anyway, so to find somebody with just the kind of voice that I felt like would add, the element that I wanted to my musicality, that was something that really took some thought. So I went through some ideas that people had around me in my circle, and I thought about some people I knew. I couldn't really come up with any. I was really struggling with it, actually. I couldn't come up with anybody that I felt was going to be the sound that I really wanted on this album. Great. I have some really talented, wonderful friends who are great. But since it's my expression and my thing, I wanted to just try to find somebody who I felt 100% like could be part of my musical message. So the pivot, the big change or the solution came in a phone call with my friend Roy from Prague Report. And he actually had mentioned to me, not about my album, this is just a conversation, we're talking about other things, but he mentioned this guy, Joe Payne, who goes by the name of That Joe Payne. And I said, I don't know who that is. I don't know who That Joe Payne is. So, but I did some research and I checked out some of his work. I went back and I listened to, he has a couple solo albums out. He has some work he did years ago with kind of an underground prog group called the Enid, which not many people know about, but I kind of discovered them. And I heard his voice and I was like, I like this guy's voice. This is awesome. So I invited him to be part of the album and to sing on it. And he was interested to do it. Yeah. And so I was, okay, I got my singer. And I was so pleased because I feel like he's so musical. He not only has a very melodic sounding voice, but he's just so musical and knowledgeable. So I could send him my MIDI files and I could show him the ideas for harmonies and he could just run with it and just do it and offer me things that I might, that I didn't think of, which contributed to the band sound of this, to have his element there. I felt like, a Jordan Rudess album, it's fun for me and it can be very wide musically because of my kind of extended musical interests, but still it's going to be me, right? Unless I bring in other elements and they expand what I'm offering. And Joe was amazing because I felt like he really did that, both with his sound and also his harmonic ideas and all that kind of stuff. So that was great. And then just speaking for a minute about the other elements. So Steve Dudane is a friend of mine. He's a really great electric and acoustic guitarist. He's actually also a dentist, which is amazing. He's one of these guys that just does whatever he touches, he does, really, really well. So one day he was over visiting because we're friends and he was like, Jordan, like some of the guitar parts you're playing on the keyboard with the keyboard, from the keyboard, he says, they sound really good. He says, but why don't you let me take one of them and I'll play the guitar and, let's see how it goes. And he did. And I was like, it was undeniable. It was kind of like, yeah, man, that's better. Let's do that. So he then took like all the songs. I just gave them all. I said, here, just replace any guitar-like sound that I made and just do it right. So, yeah, so that's how that happened. I recently kind of befriended this wonderful Chilean young guitar player whose name is Bastian Martinez. He's just a beautiful soul and what I would call like a next generation kind of like guitarist. there's all these guys that have learned from the masters like John Petrucci and those guys, and kind of taking it and doing other things with it or whatever. And Bastian is one of these guys, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have him. I want him to play on my album. So he played 2 solos. He played on 2 songs, Embers and Into the Lair, and did a great job. On Into the Lair, we do this trading thing back and forth as well, which was really fun, and he did a great job. And then I also played a few guitar solos on the album myself, because I've been playing guitar over the last few years and really kind of diving into that, and I wanted to play a little bit, so I got to play on a few songs as well. And finally, as I mentioned early on in our conversation, my daughter Ariana wrote all the words for this album, and the words were a deep project, and that's the one. And when I realized how many lyrics I was going to need, I was kind of thinking, you know what, I could write the words for this, but I want to focus on the music and give it to somebody who's really into language, that can just take it on and do the right job with it. So Ari is a linguist, and she's very creative, and she's been trained on progressive music since the day she was born. So she was just like the perfect person to take that role, and did a great job writing stories that have meaning, but also finding words that really worked well with the melodic phrases. Yeah, because I'm very sensitive to that kind of thing.
You have essentially been growing the perfect person to do lyrics for your music, yourself for whole life. So that's convenient, I would say. You have your own
right.
But that's also important, because I don't know if you agree, but I feel like lyrics can often be an afterthought when it comes to music, and especially like progressive music, where the intention is often to play some fast stuff and technical stuff. So words can always be like, let's just put something, there. Let's just
Yeah.
put.
Sure. And that was not this at all. While I was, constructing all the music and orchestration, she was, really like headfirst into the depth of the lyrics. That's what I wanted. That's pretty much what we got. So for anybody out there who's really into, studying the lyrics and the meaning and kind of going for that journey, then it's all the material is there as well to immerse yourself in that.
And we talked a bit also about some of your work gear and how you do things. You like to record on the moment and do everything. Do you find that the wealth of gear and technology that you have, is it something that really inspires the music that you write, or would the music be somewhat the same if you were just with a grand piano doing stuff?
Yeah. Well, the sounds and all the technology definitely inspire. I'm very sonically sensitive. So if I call up an interesting sound, it's very likely that sound could almost influence where I go orchestrationally or compositionally. I have no problem just kind of with the idea of a limitation of just like playing piano, and like what comes out with the beautiful instrument like piano. So whatever mode I'm working in, I can kind of find that, find what I want to express musically. What's cool about doing an album like Permission to Fly, I've got this immense like palette of colors, because my software is so like deep. My collection of software is extensive, and I enjoy that because I feel like I can make any sound that I want, really, it's so amazing these days, the possibility for sonics. I would say that, in this day and age, we literally can put any sound possible on a recording. The difference is what we can look forward to in the future, in my opinion, is how do you control that sound? What are the mechanisms for the connection between who we are as human beings and the physicality and the mentality, and how do we make music and make it more connected to kind of like who we are? That's a different kind of a thing. But it's just as far as raw sonics go, I mean, come on, it's like endless.
Do you think that, or do you fear that there's maybe a path which leads to something like what you were talking about bit about on the album, The Astonishing, about how the machines make music, and it becomes more of a technological wonder than perhaps a human expression?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely, with any kind of, technology that's ever been released, there's always that kind of balance. Like, how is this technology going to be used? It can be put in the wrong hands, and it can be used badly. And I don't, in wrong hands, I mean, war or something like that, but also music. If you give somebody a drum machine, what are they going to really do with it, right? They could just put it on a 4/4 beat and rap to it, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's not very high level stuff. You're just using the machine and it's taking over. Yeah, you could just go over to a machine and say, just generate something and just play. And so what? Who cares? So I mean, those realities are, the machines are obviously getting more and more capable to do things, but what do you do with them? How do you steer them? How do you make them so there's more of a connect? How do you really extend the connection between who we are and how this machine is being used, or how the technology is being used? If there's no like resonance or connection between the person and the machine, then who cares? Right? So it's a really interesting topic, and I know there's a lot of sensitivity, and there's a lot of like AI bashers and AI enthusiasts, and we're at that point in technology. But as someone who's always worked with technology and always looking for the magic in it and the spark and the creativity and the educational values, my focus is on the positive direction of using technology to enhance who we are and what we do. Yes, the astonishing, explored a world from a certain point of view. I can't take credit for writing those lyrics or the story, so that's not coming from my mind. But, it was a cool kind of funny idea, and I had fun making the sounds of the Nomax on the record. That was actually very creative to make the weird electronic noises. But my personal belief is that, we're at a point where, we have a great possibility for the future with technology.
As a person who's worked for a long time in the industry, do you see that is there a trend with the AI? Because we got something like the Beatles' final recording infamously, where there's like AI to create John Lennon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is it a trend that you see popping up, or do we have something to be afraid of in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely have something to be afraid of because, again, how is it being used? It can be, it's one of the crazy things that's happening these days is you see something like online or whatever, and you don't know if it's real or not. That's fucked up. That's like upsetting. You get to, I don't know what I'm looking at. In a way, from a very personal point of view, I don't care. Like, just like what we can talk about the nature of reality. I mean, that we get into a whole nother discussion. But
And you need
yeah,
a whole nother host for that also, because I'm
yeah, right. Of course. Yeah, maybe. But this is really, really deep stuff. So
yeah, for sure. But you don't see Dream Theater trying to put young James Labrie voice with AI on the records anytime soon or something like that.
no. Dream Theater is very like
Yeah,
traditional in
yeah.
many ways. And
Students making.
that's one of the things I do, and I respect the group and what we're all doing, and we make some really good music. So and I bring in my little technology ideas, with the kind of instruments I'll use and stuff like that through the years. Like I brought in a wonderful continuum that I played that's very high tech. But what does that mean in like that case? It means that you have this, I don't know if you know what that instrument is, but it means you have this new technology that allows you to be so expressive on this like three-dimensional kind of surface. So that's the kind of technology that I like to bring into the band.
Yeah, for sure. Everything's up to interpretation. How do you use the gear and technology, for sure? And you
Right.
get albums like Permission to Fly, which is cool because you got their vocals and everything. Because that's often when people approach making progressive music, I feel like they might fall to the pitfall of creating just instrumental music and just this and that. But I feel like it's very refreshing to hear you making more vocal and music with text being so important. You got your talent.
Yeah. One of the things I realized is that, like, I thought about what kind of music I like to listen to
Yeah,
personally. And I was like, I like to listen to music that has vocals. I don't listen to that much instrumental
yeah,
music. So I was kind of questioning myself, like, why am I putting out an instrumental album?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like
exactly.
I want to have vocals because I like that. And I think that like, especially with Joe's voice, I think that when you bring the songs, even if it's a complex song with a lot of crazy parts, when you bring it back and there's a vocal section, it's almost like it makes it grounded and you get a chance to like breathe in the middle of the journey that could happen around it. Even my most progressive songs on Permission to Fly, I think have that element. Like The Alchemist or Into the Lair, they go off and they do interesting things sonically and rhythmically and all that. But then there are these vocal sections that kind of almost like let you take a deep breath and just kind of go with it and relax a little bit and then prepare for, the rest of the flight.
Mm. Yeah, and sometimes that's something that's missing. That sort of, I guess, would you would say probably dynamics is something that's missing in a lot of. I mean, not everything, but you see,
Yeah.
it's a trend in progressive music that everything's very sort of dense and busy all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And I have so many friends that are in the progressive space and some incredible players. But one thing that, I caution, or I not caution is the word, but I'll say to a young musician or other people in the prog space, I'll point out like why I think Dream Theater is so successful. And I think that the reason that we are is because we really love a good melody. We love things that come from the heart. Yeah, we'll play and 30-second notes flying, but all of a sudden we're doing something that's really just plain pretty, and we value that and we love that and we know what it means to our fans to have something that's just beautiful and calm. That's a high level in another way. But to just go out there and just play like counterpoint and 30-second notes and mathematical music and just have that be kind of on its own, that's not what works for me. It's not what works for Dream Theater, and it's not what works for reaching and touching a lot of people. So there's got to be, you've got to think about, I think, as a musician, how you're going to actually bring your music into somebody else's life and have it be really meaningful and have it be deep for them. So there's a lot to think about there.
Yeah, and that's actually very true. And I think that a good song at the end of the day, no matter how much you put, the sauce in there and the technical stuff, is something that you can sit down on maybe like a campfire and play on a guitar and everyone can sing and you can see that it's a good song. Because I feel like a lot of Dream Theater songs you can easily do that with. But then when you have something that's like, going 100 miles per hour, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, it might be hard to do that with like Dance of Eternity or something like that, but
Yeah, but not with
but
everything.
not with everything. But again, like you look at like our big songs, like "A View from the Top of the World," "Presence of Enemies," "Count of Tuscany," all these things. There are parts that are just settled and calm, and you have that.
I would just
Okay.
like to ask you personally, what do you get the most out of this particular album? What's the most rewarding part for you in releasing this part?
The rewarding part is that the balance that I was searching for, that I was hoping for, I really believe that I achieved. And that's kind of like a big deal to me because, I've been making albums, making music my whole life. And, it took me, I think, until the age of 67 to kind of go, okay, to find this balance of progressive song elements and to weave it as my personal expression. And I feel like it really is working. The feedback I'm getting from everybody that I talk to and here's the album is that it works and that
Mhm.
people are responding to it and they're saying, wow, I love, this balance, like all the vocals. And so I'm so happy about that. So it's a great lesson to, for me to learn. I think as a progressive musician, a lot of times people like myself, we want to play, we want to like just kind of feel the intensity or the dance of the fingers on the guitar or the keys. And there's something to be said about that, or how there's something to be said about if you can play 7/8 time in your left hand and play a different time signature in your right, and it's all really, really cool. So there's this urge to almost like do that because we've been working on these things our whole lives. But for me, feel like, wow, okay, I have that. I always have that because I'm a progressive musician, classically trained. But to say, you know what, to say to myself and then to do this offering that I really value this other part of the musical expression a lot. And I'm going to find a way to put it into my rock music releases. Right. And so that is like the really important part because, oh, maybe you don't know. So, also through the years, I put out very calm piano albums,
Mm,
things that are just kind of flowing and nice. But I didn't find a way to make my rock music calm
mm.
mostly. Occasionally there's this, song here or there on my solo rock things, but I feel like this balance of this album was really important to me, and I feel like it's touching other people.
Yeah, for sure. And before I let you go, I need to ask because, obviously viewers would be mad if I don't ask about Mike Portnoy a bit. How does it feel to be playing with Mike Portnoy once again in
No,
tribute?
it's awesome. And I know that what I've been seeing is I'll do, and I'm not saying you can do whatever you want, but I see all my interviews and I'll say a million things. And then the thing I say about Mike Portnoy is the headline. But
Yeah.
anyway, feel free. But
I don't
yeah,
think
no,
actually
it's,
because we have so much interesting stuff here that I don't need to.
oh, well, you don't know. But no, it's been amazing. It feels like, he's come back home, and it's been just incredible to welcome him back, and not only his beautiful drumming, but all the things that he does and all the things that he can bring to the music making, process, album making process, touring
Mm,
process. It's yeah, it's all, we're very, very happy.
We are all
So,
very happy for that. And I'm very happy for your new album and thankful for your time. It has been a pleasure
uh,
chatting with you once again. And thank you so much,
great.
sir. And I hope you have a good, happy release day.
Thanks. And thanks for your support as well, and your energy. I appreciate that.